Next news, breaking news.
On May 31st, Bad Hombre posted the whole script. Democrats would sit on damaging opposition research, unleash a controlled leak campaign after the primary, force Graham Platner out by July 13th, then slide in Janet Mills by July 27th. And now look at the board. Clay Travis says they waited until after July 4th to code red Platner. Politico drops the story, CNN blasts the clip, Ro Khanna, Ruben Gallego, Tim Walz, Cory Booker all yank support in a near simultaneous stampede. That's not coincidence. That's a party switch getting flipped, and the ugliest part, excuse me, is this. Democrats already knew exactly who they built. And this matters because Maine just caught the Democrat machine rigging the nomination in plain sight, while Chuck Schumer's party still struts around lecturing America about democracy. Maine Democrats held a primary. Their voters picked Graham Platner on June 9th. Then the same party bosses, media allies, and blue-check enforcers who defended him through the Nazi tattoo, the communist rhetoric, the abuse stories, the Predator app scandal, and the grotesque comments suddenly discovered standards on July 6th. After the holiday, with 1 week left before July 13th withdrawal deadline and the clean path to replacement by July 27th under Maine law. That date pair is the whole game, and even Grok laid it out. Bad Hombre forecast it more than a month earlier. Clay Travis nailed the timing, and it wasn't a moral awakening, it was ballot engineering. And if Democrats can erase primary voters in Maine this casually, they'll do it anywhere they need control. Then turn around and smear Trump voters as the threat. President Trump builds his movement in the open, and Democrats, they run coups through leaks, cable hits, and backroom swaps. And when a party can flip a switch after July 4th and try to erase voters by July 13th, you better ask what else can vanish with one command. Your savings, your access, your future? Everyone cheers AI and cloud banking until your wealth is trapped on a screen. Noble Gold Investments gives you something real. Physical gold and silver. A coin you can hold, a bar you can stack, something that doesn't live on a server. Can't be frozen by a keystroke and can't be erased by code. It can even be shipped to your door, placed in a tax-advantaged retirement account. Go to nextnewsgold.com. Just mention my name for a free 10-ounce U.S. independent silver bar when you open a new qualified account. America needs assets the machine can't rig. Here's the detail the regime can't scrub. Jake Tapper's exchange ended with the accuser saying, complying is not consenting. That clip gave Democrats their permission slip. Not to find the truth, to move the timetable, because the same people who shrugged at every earlier red flag suddenly stampeded only after CNN had the soundbite. Politico had the headline, and the calendar lined up with July 13th. We're going to show you the receipts, because once you see the sequence, the coup stops looking messy, starts looking planned. Cory Booker says enough is enough. Graham Platner needs to step aside, so Booker wasting no time and demanding Platner step aside. Now Tim Walz piles on, says he should be clearing the way for a Democrat who can take on Susan Collins. Oh yes, they're piling on the allegations of sexual assault against Graham Platner. Deeply disturbing. He should drop out and make way for a candidate that can defeat Susan Collins in November, so the pressure's already building. Libs of TikTok lays out the bigger play, coordinated media drops, synchronized condemnations. It's happening. The left decided Platner isn't useful to them anymore, so they had Politico drop a new rape claim, then had media outlets amplify, and now they will all suddenly condemn him and withdraw their endorsements almost simultaneously. It's coordinated and it's obvious. And she posts to Ro Khanna, Politico, CNN. That's the pattern the critics are watching in real time. Sean Farash takes it a step further and calls a straight-up Democrat bait and switch in Maine. He says, and he posted this early this morning, the Democrats are running yet another bait and switch play, this time in Maine with Graham Platner. Why does the party even have primaries in the first place? How are Democrat voters not sick of this? Well, he says it's not just about Platner anymore. It's about Democrat voters getting played again. Next, he delivers the broader case that their own base keeps getting overruled by party bosses. Dear Democrat voters, You need to come to grips with the sad reality that your party is the real threat to democracy in this country. Hillary in 2016 was not who you chose. Bernie got screwed. Biden in 2020 was not who you chose. Bernie got screwed again. Harris in 2024 was not who you chose. You nominated Platner, and these 11th hour rape allegations just tank that selection as if the allegations are fresh, and Democrat Party leaders had no idea that this was a possibility. You have no say in your party, none. You're controlled pawns on their chessboard. They don't care about you, and they never will. They're using you for power. Wake up and split the hook before it's too late. And here's the post from Bad Hombre. He says, I told you. This is remarkable. Democrats are sitting on a mountain of damaging opposition research on Platner. If they don't unload it before June 9th primary, expect a controlled leak campaign throughout June aimed at forcing him to withdraw by July 13th so they can replace him with Janet Mills on the general election ballot before the July 27th deadline. No, Democrats are not above staging coups against their own nominees. See Joe Biden. So the old post was on target. Didn't happen by accident. Now the calls for Platner to quit spread even further, with Zoran Mandami joining the pile-on. He demands he quit the Senate race in Maine.
I wanted to ask, given that you have a sort of ascendant role in the Democratic Party, could you talk about the Maine Senate race? Do you think that Graham Platner should drop out of the race? And do you have any intention of endorsing any candidates in competitive races outside of New York, Al Said, or anyone else?
No, I believe that it's time for him to drop out of the race. And when it comes to my own endorsements, I've made 8 endorsements at the state and federal level. They've all been right here in New York City. I'm incredibly excited at the fact that they won their races, and that's where my focus is for now. I think the focus of today should be to respond to the gravity of what so many of us have read. And I think that the only appropriate response is for the campaign to come to an end.
Thank you. We're going to go to...
So even the Democrat bench is turning on him. Clay Travis says the timing tells you everything, arguing they waited until after July 4th to spring the trap. Democrats waited until after July 4th holiday to code red Platner. They did it with a full week left to force him out of the race. It's diabolical how they are fine with erasing primaries and handpicking new nominees, all while claiming Republicans will destroy democracy. His point is simple. The machine picked its moment. Next, viewers hear the CNN interview at the center of the firestorm as Jake Tapper presses Platner's accuser on what she says happened. Buckle up.
You said that I just want to find out more about. You said he was forcing himself on you. It was getting violent. You were pushing him off. You were kicking him off. Needles and sewing equipment was falling all over. And walk us through the process where you decided that the safest thing you could do was just let him rape you.
Yeah, I had never been in that situation before. And I remember it being an instant where I had recognized that he wasn't listening to me. It wasn't just that he wasn't hearing me or whatnot. And then I recognized his level of intoxication, and I knew in that moment I wasn't safe. And I don't think I was safe to physically fight back. He's big, he's strong. And I just had to evaluate my safety and come up with the least worst outcome to the situation. And so I felt like complying for my safety was the least worst option.
But that's not consenting.
No, complying is not consenting.
Complying is letting him rape you.
Is getting it over with.
Oh my goodness.
So that he didn't hurt you even more?
I don't know what this person is capable of. I don't think anybody does. And even people you know for years and trust, you don't know the depths of what they're capable of. And
You were afraid for your safety.
yeah, I was afraid for my safety.
Beyond, not that rape isn't a horrific thing, but beyond
Right.
rape.
I didn't want to find out how unsafe I could get that night, or how harmed I could be that night.
Unbelievable. The interview is exactly what detonated this inside the Democrat Party. Now, Sean Spicer says the next move is obvious. Force Platner out and handpick a replacement. Trust me on this. D.C. Democrats are about to pull another Biden. Despite a primary where Maine voters chose known dirtbag Graham Platner, they are going to switch him out. Janet Mills is about to get a second life courtesy of Schumer. And here is Platner.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics, the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power, and to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated. And we will use every tool at our disposal to do so. As Maine goes, so goes the nation. As always, thank you.
So, he says he's reflecting on the path forward, but the questions are only getting sharper. Over on Morning Joe, Politico gets grilled on why it ran the story now and what evidence it says it reviewed. Morning Joe spends 5 minutes grilling Politico's Adam Wren for running a story on Platner's ex, accusing him of rape. Given the high standards Politico has before they write something like this and publish it, what aspects of the story brought it to the level of publishable?
Questions about this, the questions surrounding this on both sides of this debate. There's not a police report, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. And there's not a legal case playing out here for due process to see itself through. So my question to you, given the very high standards Politico has before they write something like this and publish it, what aspects of this story brought it to the level of publishable?
Yeah, you're correct here, Mika. There is no police report in this case. We spent a lot of time talking to Jenny, asking her for corroborating evidence. She shared that she had confided into a number of people, including her therapist, in almost real time. And we reviewed email exchanges between she and her therapist, referring to what she called this sexual assault, and her therapist sort of acknowledging that this had happened to her. We talked to people who she confided in the months after this happened. We asked her why she didn't file a police report, and she described sort of the insular nature of where she lives in her corner of Maine that she shares with Graham Platner. And she, debated sort of how to handle this. And we found ultimately the number of corroborating pieces of evidence to support her story in a way that we could report it.
So what are some...
So even the media getting questioned on the timing. Laura Ingra's panel zeroes in on an even darker claim. The major outlets and Democrats knew much more long before this report dropped. The New York Times covered itself in shame. Steve Robinson Here's more from Laura Ingraham.
Steve, I want to start with you. This new accuser, Jenny Rasico, says that she never went to the police because she was shocked, and then she was worried that Platner would retaliate against her. What is your sense tonight?
Well, first, I'll say she's not the only person in Maine right now who is scared of retaliation and violence from Platner or the Platneristas. I know that there's a lot of women and a lot of political operatives are making security upgrades because this is a guy who, by his own Reddit threads, has been training the Socialist Rifle Association up here in Maine. But also, you know, this is the red line for Democrats in Maine. It wasn't the allegations in the New York Times report 1 month ago, which included tales of abuse against women, and also Jenny's story, which was given to the New York Times off the record, and they had to respect that agreement, but they buried it. So the New York Times has covered themselves in shame with this story, with how they handled the original report. But all the Maine Democrats, all the national Democrats, they learned about the Nazi tattoo, his obvious lies about the Nazi tattoo, multiple tales of sexual abuse, sexual violence, and they said this is fine. The Senate seat means more to us. But now that this woman has sat for an interview with Politico and Jake Tapper, now they're finally willing to all withdraw their endorsement. It doesn't speak well of any of the Democrats involved, Laura.
So that's true. That wasn't a vetting failure. It was a cover-up until the cost got too high. Scott Jennings makes the case bluntly, arguing Democrats signed off on Platner's record and now only pretending to be shocked.
The only thing I disagree with is when she said that he hadn't been vetted. No, he had been vetted. All of the things that have been stated, it was all out in the public. And people like Ro Khanna, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Tim Walz, the Bulwark, Pod Save America, all these people came together to overlook it all, to explain it all, to rationalize it all. He was vetted. People knew all these things. And a whole bunch of Democrats in Maine showed up and voted for him anyway. And a bunch of donors from around the country sent him money anyway. I agree with Alyssa's question. What changed? Why are you bailing on Graham Platner now? You already signed off on Nazi tattoo, a self-described communist, somebody who's had rape fantasies, somebody who has been on a social media platform known as a playground for predators, and on and on and on and on and on. And the difference between this accuser and the previous one is simply this. She's a liberal. It's okay, I guess, for Democrats that their candidates assault conservatives. But he broke into someone's house and apparently, according to her, raped her. And because her politics are correct, they can now believe it. All of this whole thing is disgusting. But to say that they hadn't vetted him or that they didn't know about all this is totally false. They knew it and they signed up for it. And I don't know why they're backing away from this scumbag today when they had already signed off on all that other crazy behavior.
Christine.
You gotta love Scott Jennings. He says they knew exactly who they were backing. Next, even CNN's Abby Phillip is heard calling out top Democrats like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, for looking the other way.
There is an issue here with a lot of very prominent Democrats, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, two among them, who basically turned the other way at the first set of allegations. Why does it take a sexual assault allegation for them to
that point? I heard Senator Kirsten Gillibrand speak at the Aspen Institute last week. And when Graham Platner came up, all she had to say was that he was a strong candidate and was going to, soar to a victory. There was no even an acknowledgement of the New York Times report of the Nazi tattoo. And if you all will remember, this is the same senator who was called the Me Too senator, in part because she led the charge against Al Franken in the Senate. She very much, was instrumental in pushing that culture forward. And I think Me Too was necessary in a lot of ways. But we didn't need a rape allegation to know that Graham Platner had already allegedly violated the standards that she set. And she was willing to sacrifice all her principles, among many other Democrats, to go up against arguably the most moderate Republican in the Senate, Susan Collins, who's already willing to go up against Trump. This is not some super partisan person.
Yeah.
So when CNN starts asking why Democrats ignored the warnings, the damage is spreading. Libs of TikTok follows with a full rap sheet of scandals. Nazi tattoo, lied repeatedly about Nazi tattoo, said he would rape people, sexed with women while married, bragged about drawing penises in porta potties, praised Islamic terrorists, said he's a communist, joined an app known to be used by predators to contact minors in sexual assault allegations. But now they decided it's too much. All the above was totally fine, though. Laura Loomer's next move, even more direct, make Democrats own every endorsement, every excuse they made for this guy. She says, make every single voter remember the entire Democrat Party endorsed a Nazi who had been accused of raping women. I hear there are more women and possibly even kids on kick. The Democrat better own this shit. They better swallow it all because this is their guy. Make them own him. Red Lion Politics highlights the deleted post raising allegations about Troy Jackson, one of the names in the chatter. Caught this post, was deleted in seconds. Let's see. We began asking our contacts on the ground in Maine about Troy Jackson earlier today, seeing many suggestions that he should replace Graham Platner against Susan Collins. In our discussions, we've received troubling information not only about Jackson's behavior, but the behavior of many prominent Maine Democrats towards women more broadly, both as a result of the credibility of the sources and the interest not seeing our movement make the same mistake twice. We're choosing to share some of this now. As Maine Senate President in a state Senate caucus several years ago, Troy Jackson struck a female. The information is still developing, so they deleted that post. And wokeness widens the shot, tying Platner to the left's long-running double standard on masculinity and believing women. Platner, I embody healthy masculinity, broke into his ex's home and raped her, allegedly. Emhoff, toxic masculinity is a crisis, impregnated his child's nanny. Swalwell, believe all women, allegedly assaulted 6 women. So next comes the question hanging over the whole race. Is Platner actually suspended or not? Well, no, he's not suspended his campaign following a Politico report. He says he's taking time to reflect on the best path forward. And now we have this from the Maine Democrat Party going public accusing Platner of basically holding them hostage.
Endorsement. Chuck wants him to end it immediately. And they're even shopping for his replacement. Democrats have less than a week to find a new candidate. But the New York Times reports that Platner won't step down unless Democrats promise to replace him with someone just as radical as himself. His campaign says that's not true, but we're not sure how good their word is at this point. The party knew Platner had skeletons in his closet. His opponent was warning about him back in March.
The negatives on this guy are much more damaging, and that's why I'm trying to get people to look at the whole thing, the whole picture. I think his liabilities make him much more vulnerable.
So the moral verdict, it lands in the timestamps. Bad Hombre wrote it on May 31st that Democrats would run a controlled leak campaign and force Graham Platner out by July 13th. So they could replace him by July 27th. Then Clay Travis said Democrats waited until after the 4th of July holiday to code red Platner. Then Politico published, Jake Tapper amplified, Cory Booker snapped, Tim Walz snapped, Ro Khanna withdrew his endorsement, Ruben Gallego rescinded his. Chuck Schumer world wants the slot cleared. That's not a party discovering character, that's a machine executing a timetable, and the villain is not just Graham Platner. Chuck Schumer's Democrat apparatus, the legacy media hit squad, and every sanctimonious leader who backed this man until the minute he became inconvenient, built this filth, sold this filth, and now they want amnesia. So here's the line that nobody should let Democrats cross without paying for it at the ballot box. They do not get to spend months defending Graham Platner, harvesting money off Graham Platner, herding primary voters into backing Graham Platner, then smash the glass after July 4th and pretend they just met the guy. Elizabeth Warren knew the record, Bernie Sanders knew the record, Tim Walz knew the record, Cory Booker knew the record, Ro Khanna knew enough to endorse him before he knew enough to flee him. Own it, every inch, and watch the next move closely because the calendar still screams louder than the press releases. July 13th for the exit, July 27th for the swap. If Janet Mills or another hand-picked replacement suddenly materializes, Nobody should act surprised. Drop your take below and send this to the Democrat in your life who still babbles about norms, and keep your eyes on Maine. The machine just showed the country how it eats its own. And we're not going to let you lose out on the notifications that YouTube doesn't send you. That's why we set up this telephone number just for you. Raw feed is the one you have to text to 844-840-4963 to stay on the inside track like thousands and thousands of other patriots. And make sure you're celebrating the wins here with us at the Next News Network by going to the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power. I want you to see this. Truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.